Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of In the Lead podcast. And I'm very excited to have with me today Severine Vauleon. Welcome, Sev, to the show. I'm so excited to have you here. I'd love for you to maybe first introduce yourself, like your leadership experience. I know we have pretty hot shot here, but yes.
Well, thank you so much, Anna, for having me to start with. So I'm Severine Vauleon, or Sev in short, for most people who know me. I am French-born, but I'm also an Australian these days.
Oh.
That's where I started my career. And I've now lived in Singapore for 15 years.
Wow.
And all of that changed between living in France, living in Australia, living here in Singapore has been thanks to Unilever.
Yeah.
I was until recently a global brand VP with Unilever.
Amazing.
And it's been a 25 plus year of career with that company, leading many different brands across many different continents. And it's been a really wonderful journey that had really shaped my style of leadership. Most recently, I was the head of the Luxe brand, which is one of our billionaire beauty brands. And before that, I was the head of the Close-Up brand, which is an oral care brand.
Oh, yes.
Well, first of all, I'm really passionate about building global brands that are meaningful and have local cultural relevance, so that consistency globally, but also that local nuance and injecting that into the brand. That's something that I'm really passionate about. I also believe, it's something I've learned at Unilever, I really believe in what I call good growth, which is the notion that purposeful marketing has to go beyond just delivering the numbers, that I can take into account the impact that we have on the people, on the planet, on our teams, on the employees of the company. That's something that really matters to me.
Yeah.
I'm a strong collaborator. I like to work with teams. I like to work with partners. So I think that's very much part of my leadership style, is how you bring all this diverse bunch of people together and lead them somewhere where you want to go. But I really believe in that collective intelligence of the team. I'm sometimes it could be a little bit disheartened when you see what's going on in the world, that maybe the loudest, strongest voice is the one that tends to dominate. And for me, I believe in a leadership style that's almost the opposite of that, which is more about empathy, which is more about maybe a bit more caring, a bit more respectful. That's the style of leadership that I admire and that I try to emulate.
Wow. I'm so excited. I'm so honored that you're here. And I think there's a bit of a personal background to that as well, because, as you know, I have a consulting background. And as consultants, we like to think, we're the leadership factory of the world. But between you and me, a lot of the strategy consultants that work with firms like the firm I was with, we actually really look at an organization like Unilever as the true leadership factory, because you're not the only one who's been there for 25 years and, groomed internally, all these opportunities that you've had. So I'm really looking forward to learn a lot about that experience. It's been 25 years. What your view on leadership is that, do you feel that has also been like what you have seen around you in Unilever as being the type of leadership that's been rewarded and encouraged? Or is it despite the environment you were in, like this is what you found for yourself to be the most successful style?
I think a little bit of both. Definitely there's a part that is learned and nurtured from the environment you're in. And so I think that has definitely shaped me. I think I was reflecting recently with someone else that I was lucky enough to have many female bosses.
Yeah.
Not everyone has, especially in some of my team, some of the countries, fewer female leaders, fewer female role models. I had quite a few positive role models that I could look at and I could learn from. So I think that helped. And then it's finding what's right for you, what feels authentic to who you are as a person. I mean, I could try as much as I can to be the alpha male. It's never going to work.
Right.
So it's finding what resonates and what feels natural. And I think one thing we've been very much encouraged at Unilever was that authentic leadership.
Yes.
Really bring your authentic self to work.
Yeah.
Because when you can be your authentic self, you can be 100% focused on the task at hand. You don't have to think of, I leave this persona here and bring a new different persona in the office. So you're more focused. I think you're more aligned with yourself as a person. And so I think you can lead better in that way.
So many people I know who've been with Unilever, and you've had the good role models, but you've had some inspiring CEOs, I think, and it's known for, the drive behind purpose. And as we start like the disruption that we're looking at, right? Because the world seems to be in constant change and moving parts. And if you look around at, what's changing in the world as a leader, what are some shifts or disruptions that you are paying attention to?
The one everyone's paying attention to is obviously AI. I'm sorry.
Yes.
It had to come out early in the podcast. But that's one, obviously, that is that you need to be paying attention to. So I'm very much one that wants to lean into this disruption. I would say one of the positive disruption that I've had the chance to be working with in the last year.
Yeah.
We started with AI many years ago in Unilever, but Gen AI, I think, has been the latest iteration of this, and that acceleration has been huge.
Yeah.
And I think as a marketeer, if you don't embrace it, you're going to be totally left behind. So it's better to lean in, and that's one of the things I tried to do with my team. And just before I left Unilever was really, how do we get ahead of the curve? How do we start practicing, learning, experimenting, so that when the tide is fully on, then we're ready.
Yeah.
So that's definitely one. I think one of the disruption that I'm also paying a little bit of attention, obviously everyone's paying a lot of attention, is the political world order and how that is shaping the economy or creating a lot more further disruption, as if we were not disrupted enough. There's more
self-inflicted disruption.
Yes. So I think that's something that still paying a lot of attention, seeing how that's going to land. I'm the glass half full kind of person, so I'm hoping that there is a silver lining somewhere, that we're going to see that what's happening is not tenable and that something better is going to come, but let's see.
Actually, I'd love to hear some examples of, disruption that you have faced in your business as a leader, and how you handle those.
Well, I think the first one I was just talking about was the AI one. So I think that one was a disruption that I could see we need to be leaning in. So that's something that I was very much trying to drive with my team. And Unilever has really trying to completely change the way we do marketing. For decades, we've been very much campaign-based, clear timelines, very centralized way of doing things. I think now we live in the era of real-time marketing and living engaging consumers at the pulse of culture. So completely needed to shift the way not only we think, but design and work with agency partners, with the markets, etc. For me, it's not like you have a choice.
Right.
You're either going to get on that train or the brand is going to be left behind. So I haven't been leading Lux for 5 years to be left behind. So I wanted to make sure the team was on the train and actually at the forefront of that train.
Yes.
Even though we started the transformation at Unilever in the West because some of the markets were more ready and the brands were more ready, I decided with my team, no, let's go. Let's go. Maybe we don't know exactly, we don't have all the answers, we don't have all the tools, not all the skills in place. But let's get going with whatever we can so that once the playbook has been written,
Yes.
we've already started learning and we know what to do. And so that was quite exciting. I think the team, so for me, it was not to say to the team, okay, we have a playbook, let's roll it out. It was more, let's learn together.
Yeah.
We've never done this before. We know, acknowledging that we didn't have all the answers, that there were probably some gaps there, but having that growth mindset of learning, experimenting, I think was something that the team really appreciated. And let's figure it out as we go along. Let's learn along the way. And I think a little bit of that pioneering spirit also of, okay, let's try to be one of the first in this part of the world to lean into this and to be at the forefront.
I love that. And do you have any examples of like what were things that you experimented and they worked really well, or things you experimented and said, okay, as my daughter says, let's not ever do that again? And like, do you have any like examples? Because when we think of Gen AI or AI and marketing, we right away think about image creation or copywriting. But how did you go about, you and your team?
The way we work in the matrix of Unilever as a global team, it was more trying to give the quality ingredients, have the right quality of ingredients so that the countries can do a lot of the creations on their own. So for me, it was more, what are the things that we want to almost cast in stone, or what are the guardrails that we want to put in place so that the markets are best equipped to move fast and without requiring many levels of approval, etc. I think we're still learning. So far, it's gone quite well. We know that the image generation doesn't always work. But one of the things for us that works, but as a result means you need to be so much better prepared and have really good planning, is what we call super shoot. So we try to think of all the potential scenarios that are going to be deployed in the content, so that we try to shoot everything together, or as many things as possible together in a really good quality shoot, so that we have beautiful premium looking kind of visuals. At the same time, we have so much quality raw material that then the markets can really play with it in many different ways. So when you're used to planning maybe a couple of months ahead, here you need to think, okay, what have I got? You need to be planning much further and think of many more scenarios that you'd ever thought before. So, and that's when the AI comes in, because then they help you say, oh, you didn't think about this. We can create scene that you hadn't thought about. Or you had planned for this scenario, but not for that one. We can leverage this and then tweak it to fit this particular audience or this particular scenario you hadn't thought about. So it's actually, it's fun. It's learning process, but it's been quite fun.
That's really fun, because you're then using it to discover your blind spots, and then that will not just help you particularly do that type of work better, but the next time you also remember, oh, last time I had this blind spot. So you're actually using it as a way to learn and get better.
And even better, the next step is then to also be plugged in, like almost with an automated flow with the market, so that not just the blind spot, but you know what worked and what didn't work. So that you know, okay, next time I don't need to do this one because that didn't work, but that one worked really well. I need 3 of those.
It's fantastic. This is really an example of how you blend growth mindset, which everybody's talking about. Still hard to establish, and then with Gen AI. I like that. I like that a lot. Is growth mindset, because when I work with organizations and we look at like, okay, how do you navigate all this change? One of the main attributes of leaders, but also their teams, is to constantly grow and also change their thinking, right? Adam Grant wrote this whole book about it, Rethinking, and it's about, okay, I now have an assumption how it works, but next year the world has changed, so I need to be honest with myself and let go and second guess and advance from that assumption. How was the growth mindset or rethinking culture in your team, or how did you establish that? Or is it a natural Unilever thing that everybody wakes up with?
I think it's becoming more a necessity. So if you don't have it, I think it will be difficult to thrive and not just survive. But I think it's definitely nurtured. Yeah. And in some cases, for the younger members of the team, maybe you need to develop it a little bit. Things are changing in marketing. The way we market is the way I started marketing 25 years ago to now is so vastly. I mean, the fundamental principles haven't changed, but the how we do the marketing is very, very different. The biggest challenge is what you were saying, which is how do I challenge my assumptions? How do I look at things we've done and say, oh, maybe this doesn't work anymore. Maybe this is not relevant anymore. And I think for that, you need to have a lot of humility. And I think one of the things we try to nurture in my team is a lot of psychological safety, because you need to be able to say, I didn't get this one right. Yeah. I messed up. And you need to be able to hear the feedback from the others saying, well, actually, I disagree with you. Yeah. I think we should do it this way. And that's one actually of the things I prided myself the most on, is the level of psychological safety we achieved in our team, which meant that everyone could bring their ideas. It doesn't matter what level you are. Everyone has a point of view, a valid one that's worth listening to. Right. And actually that might change your perspective. And you go, I hadn't thought about this one. Maybe actually we need to pivot this way.
So, okay, imagine if I am on your team and I mess up something, right? And here I am, I say, okay, Sav, I'm so sorry. I was supposed to do this. Now I messed it up. Like, because I even struggle with that, right? How do you handle that?
Look, first of all, we're selling soap, not saving lives. So you just put things in perspective.
Right. That's a really good perspective.
So that's number one. I think second one, I think much better owning up. So that for me, I reward. I mean, as parents, we tell them it's better you tell me than rather than find out later. You'll have a much better punishment if I find out by myself than if you admit that you've made a mistake. So I think it's the same in teams. So it's better if you come to me and say, ooh, I messed up. I think that's better. And then I think there's a time to review why things didn't work out. Yeah. What can we learn from it? Yeah. But there's a time to go, okay, how do we fix it? Often the blame storming. People go straight there. Depending on the situation, I would rather go, okay, how do we fix it? And then let's do a post-mortem later and understand, okay, how do we avoid this in the future? What can we do better? What did we learn from this so that it doesn't happen again? But for people to be able to come, for you to be able to come to me telling me you've messed something up, I think it's important that I also acknowledge when I mess up and recognizing the mistakes that I've gone or the errors of judgment that I've made. And I think it's not easy for a leader to sometimes have that level of vulnerability. Yeah. To say, I don't know, or I messed up, or I've learned that if you can have that, it's very powerful, because then it makes the team trust you more. I think they come to you with more ideas, because less afraid of getting judged. So I think it creates a much better environment on the whole.
You know, we're a little bit in this period where we're redefining what great leadership looks like, because I don't know about you, but my original thinking about a leader is like, okay, the person who knows the most, who knows exactly how to get there, is very decisive, never makes a mistake, never. And, you know, that's what teachers have told us. That's what Hollywood has told us. That's what, when we look at the TV and we see politicians or CEOs who change their minds, then we think, oh, why didn't they know this up front, right? But in today's world that is changing so fast, it's impossible to have known everything.
Totally.
I think in role modeling that it is okay to change your mind if you've had good new facts. I think that's really interesting. Yeah. And when we talk about your team and this shifting role of leadership, what do you think like people, your people or in general people would need right now the most from leaders?
Given the pressures at the moment that everyone is facing, I think one of the things that clarity, of course, is always something that they need from leaders because it's so chaotic. So having a clear line of direction, where are we going?
Yeah.
Clarity of vision, clarity of decision making, I think that's really important. Also because we're moving so fast.
Yeah.
That having that clarity and not, umming, ahhing, losing time, I think that's super important. Because of that pressure, I think empathy
Yes.
is, I think, too often I would say the lacking ingredient. And I think that's a very important ingredient. I think having that level of empathy because it's tough. The context is tough, and I think acting with that level of empathy, I think is going to make a difference.
So when we go on the first one first, right? Like clarity, how do you give clarity when everything is? I mean, when you maybe also don't know, or is it like, do you spend your most day to get that clarity? When everything's moving, what kind of clarity are you able to offer to your people?
You make the best informed decision you can.
Right.
Sometimes it's less about being 100% correct, but 80% is good enough, but it's giving that clear direction, and everyone goes behind that. So yes, you make the best informed choice. I think in Lux, because I'd been on the brand for so long, I knew the brand so intuitively. There's a lot of inbuilt gut feel and intuition that I could bring. You don't need the data. You just go because it's the right thing to do. So that's... Experience is also something that maybe counts for something. The best data that you have, and sometimes it can be a comprehensive piece of research, but sometimes it's just the information you've gathered from a bunch of different people, and you just have to make it on the go, and that's how you work.
It's hard, yeah. Maybe 5-6 years ago, we had this massive wave of data, right? And then the quotes of people were like, oh, there's just too much data out there to trust your intuition. And now it seems like we are moving so fast that we're going beyond what any data can explain to us. So now that intuition comes back in, and that combination, that balance between the two, nobody really knows. There's no data who's going to tell us what's going to happen next, right? So it's interesting that you bring that up. I have also seen from my research in today's world where everything is moving, but also where you have AI to generate pretty much anything for you. To really stand out as a leader, you have to sort of, focus on how do you protect that original thinking? Because anything can be generated anywhere. So how do you not just have creative ideas, encourage your teams to have creative ideas, but to be flexible, which is a little bit that rethinking that we discussed before, and the independent thinking. And I guess maybe when it comes to intuition and you don't have the data to always back up every decision, sometimes you have to take a bold bet, right? You have to take, okay, we're just going to go for this. Do you have any examples or any recent bold bets that you had to make just because, okay, intuitively it felt like the right way, you had some data, but it was still a gap between the two and you just decided, let's go?
One that was kind of scary, it's not so recent, but I think it was it's very memorable because it was a lot of pressure at the time.
Yeah.
Was on Close Up. So Close Up is a toothpaste brand, gives you fresh breath and white teeth. And it's built, as per the name, it's built around giving you the confidence to get close.
Oh, I like it.
And when I took the helm of the brand, I realized, okay, if we're giving the confidence to get close, I'm not sure that the young audience that we were serving had everything in hand to be able to get close to the person they had a crush on, because society was not allowing them to in a lot of our markets.
Right.
So, and we'd been doing marketing portraying the same type of couples since the brand was born, basically. So we launched this campaign in the Philippines, celebrating different types of couples and celebrating freedom to love whoever you want.
Wow.
Which was quite a bold campaign for the Philippines because it's quite a conservative market. And we did get a little bit of criticism. But on the whole, it went quite well with quite a lot of positive sentiment. You know, people were really appreciating, we were showcasing different couples. Doesn't have to be one stereotype, that there's love comes in many different shapes and sizes, basically.
Love that.
And so we went for the next market, which was India, where we had different couples from different castes and different religions and same sex, etc. So we had quite a diversity of couples showcased in this campaign, and we launched, and within a few hours of launching, Twitter went ballistic. This was still before the X rebrand.
It was still Twitter.
It was still Twitter, and Twitter went ballistic. We had calls for boycott of the brand, and a lot of religious groups went after us and things like that. So I got a lot of pressure from my colleagues in India to can the campaign, to stop the campaign. But, you know, once you've put something out there, it's very difficult to stop it. To stop it and take it back. It's almost worse. And I remember thinking, oh gosh, okay, so now I'm here, and everyone was looking at me and saying, okay, what do we do? Do we pull the campaign? Market was like, this is blowing up. It's huge. We have to stop. But at the same time, I was like, no, I can't. So basically, in that time, what we did, we gathered the team. We had a kind of a war room. We're studying. We put also social listening in place so that we could study the sentiment. And soon enough, we realized that, okay, Twitter was the problem. The other channels were fine. I had communications experts from London dialed in, explained to our India team, you can't pull a campaign like this, like that. It's worse. It create more damage or different type of damage. We just decided eventually that afternoon, okay, we'll just turn off Twitter. We won't put any more money promoting the campaign there, but we'll continue promoting the campaign in the other channels, which were actually more reflective of our audience. We realized by then that most of the issues on Twitter were coming from bots.
Right.
Which were not even consumers. And so I had to tell my boss, who was in Europe, I was like, okay, there's a small issue, but we're managing. And, you know, I didn't have all the data.
Yes.
So we gathered a bit of a team. We had a bit of a crisis room. But I had all the data that was at the origin of the campaign. We knew that people in India wanted to see this kind of portrayal of love, that half of the youth in India was hiding their relationship from their family because they were worried that people wouldn't approve. So we knew that this was the right thing to do eventually. Because I had seen that data, I knew it was a robust piece of work that we'd done before. But in the moment, it was still a little bit daunting. But I think all the people that were in that room would remember vividly that Friday afternoon.
Friday.
It was a Friday afternoon. And then on Saturday morning, I woke up and my boss sent me a message from our president who said, hold the line. You're doing the right thing. Just stay the course. which was great message of support to get. But yeah, so there was a little bit of data, intuition, collective intelligence, as I mentioned before. For me, working with the team is really important. So getting that collective intelligence into the room and then making the decision. Wow. And eventually the campaign we carried on for several weeks, and sentiment was overwhelmingly positive on the whole. But
amazing. It takes so much courage to put something like that out. Amazing. How do you foster that bold risk-taking in the people around you? Because it's one thing if you're in the seat, right? And you're literally in the lead and they all look at you, but how do you encourage that in the people around you, aside from role modeling it yourself?
Well, I think it depends who you're talking about. I think, for my team, this is the kind of work they love to do. And my agency, of course, they love to work on this kind of bold work, because on the whole, we see that at the end, most of the time, it doesn't always work, but more cases than not, it makes if it's founded on the right insights, it will make the brand more resonate better with the audience, and it will make the brand stand out in the sea of sameness, especially in the world of FMCGs, right? So I think there's appetite. So you don't have to convince them a lot. Some would say, okay, but do we know if it's really going to work or not? So then it's a question of allocating budgets, whatever. But that audience is not so hard to convince. But I'm sitting in the global team. Most of my campaigns deployed in the market. So I need a market partner. That needs a courageous partner to come with you, because they're the ones, like this India team I was telling you about, they're the ones in the front line. They're the ones getting people calling them and saying, what is this? Criticizing or whatever in some cases. And I have another example of a campaign we did on Lux, actually. It was one of our first campaign with Caster Semenya. We decided to support Caster Semenya. She's a South African athlete that was born with hyperandrogenism, and eventually, even though she'd won world championships and Olympic medals in athletics, she was banned because she had too much testosterone. She was born this way, but she was told you can only compete if you take hormone suppressing drug that suppress your hormones, which she didn't want to do. And so we developed this campaign. Actually, the agency came to us proactively with this idea, this campaign called Born This Way. People have criticized her for not really being a woman, but she's a woman. She just was born this way. And she's proud to be a woman. And we decided, okay, let's support her cause. Let's stand by her as she tries to get that ban lifted so she could compete in Tokyo. And it was quite different from what we'd done before on the brand, and certainly in South Africa. In South Africa, we've been working with actresses and Miss Universe and quite a different type of beauty and different types of campaigns. So the team there was like, okay, this is very bold. This is it's a very nice campaign, but is it on brand? And how are people going to follow us with that? And so they were a little bit worried. And I knew that unless I had them on board, I could never make this campaign come to life. So I needed to work with the team. And so I think it's really about building that partnership. How do we? I believed in that idea, but how do I also listen to their concerns? And so when they said, oh, but is it really on brand? I was like, okay, I'm the brand owner. So you trust me on what's on brand, what's not on brand. You have to trust my judgment on that.
Yes.
But I hear you're concerned about managing PR issues and things like that. So we put in place a PR war game. We worked with different team members to make sure that all of their concerns were managed, but we didn't change the idea. We just made sure that in case something blew up, we had everything in place to manage the situation, but also try to proactively manage in a very positive way. And so we went live, and it worked really, really well. Caster was a beloved athlete for South Africans anyway. And I think most people were really happy that a big brand like Lux was actually supporting her at that very difficult time in her career. So I think there was a lot of positive, on the whole, very positive sentiment coming through, and it did serve the brand quite well eventually. And it was very funny because a couple of years later, we had another campaign for South Africa, and the local team now, they were like, oh yeah, let's do it. Let's make sure. It was again quite controversial. We were putting QR codes on the bums and
I know that
chest of volleyball players, basically protest the objectification of beach volleyball players in South Africa. But so again, it was quite bold. But because we'd worked together, we'd built that rapport, we could trust each other that we were going to do it right, and that we were not going to do it blindly and carelessly. I think that trust had been built, and so we were able to make that campaign really big, and we did win a lot of awards for it as a consequence. Yeah.
I was going to say, so that, I think that's one of my favorite campaigns of all times, where you put the QR codes and then people scan and they actually get a video, right, about why am I as a woman always zoomed in onto my body parts and how we... Exactly. Fantastic. That only ran in South Africa.
Yeah, it was a South Africa campaign. It's not so many countries where Lux and beach volleyball have this overlap. So we could have done it in Brazil as well, highly relevant for that market. But hopefully the guidelines we put in place, and which the South African Broadcasting Organization has adopted, are now going to be adopted by more networks and journalists. Let's see.
They adopted.
Yes. So
amazing. I love how you always joke like we're selling soap, but you're really grabbing every opportunity to do whatever impact you can create with the thing. It's very remarkable. I love that.
Thank you.
And I guess this example is an example of how you build coalitions, because and that is such an important skill of a leader. Like, in today's world, which becomes more and more global, our impact is not just like, can you lead a team, but can you lead a broader ecosystem in matrix organizations, or even like beyond the borders of your organization, with agencies, with broadcasters, with anybody, that you don't necessarily have a hierarchical, say, authority over, but you try to influence them along. I think it's a fantastic example. And I guess maybe what I'm wondering about is, Unilever is known as this organization with a very strong purpose. And I know you've done a lot of internal training programs. Into what extent does that purpose, that shared purpose, play a role as you rally these people behind, your campaigns or your ideas from the markets and the other stakeholders? Do you go very much with the why? Do you, or it's everybody knows the why, or how does that play a role?
At the end of the day, there's always that question, especially on every campaign that we do: is my money going to give me the return that I'm looking for? So you need to explain the why, because the why might not be an instant return.
Yeah,
especially these kinds of campaign where you trying to go a little bit beyond the functionality of the product and trying to create a different type of relationship with the consumer that's more around shared values or beliefs. I think that shows up slightly more longer term.
Yeah.
And it takes time to measure that. There's still always a lot of education that needs to be that needs to be done in terms of why are we doing that? What are the benefits? And luckily enough, I've been able to have some examples of markets where we've been able to do some of this work, measure the impact, and say, look, it's not always doing this kind of activation I've discussed, but just having a very clear point of view on, in our case, on beauty and on how to portray women, I think helps the brand stand out and be a bit more differentiated. And I think it resonates a lot with some of our consumers and eventually shows up in the brand health.
Unilever is a massive system because you have hundreds of thousands of people. And if you look at yourself as a leader, how do you feel you have developed over time?
I think I've definitely evolved, and I was asking one of my former team members how my leadership has evolved in the time that I worked with him, and he says I've become more empowering. I think it's also a function of gaining confidence in my role, and also in the fact that the world moves so fast, you cannot control and be directive on everything. You need to empower the team a lot more because so many things are happening at the same time. It's impossible to be a control freak. And having clarity of some things, understanding what's sacrosanct and what is not, and then letting the team go, I think is something that that's changed over the years. And I think being more yourself, being more authentic, and not trying to have just this point you were raising right at the beginning, which is we've come full circle, which is leaders don't have to have all the answers. They don't have to know all and know it all. And actually, I've learned that no, it's okay if I don't know. But if the team needs me to make a decision, I will make one. And with the best of the knowledge we have at that point in time. So I think being clear on that, and also welcoming the discerning voices in the team, rather than several roles ago I was more wanting to be surrounded by people who thought like me and were more aligned with the way I like to work. But I've found that having people who are slightly wired differently actually bring a lot of value to the table, and surrounding yourself with people who either don't dissent or don't bring something new and different to the table is you're missing out on something. You may have some blind spots that you're not aware of. So I think welcoming that diversity of point of view, I think I was looking for approval earlier on as a new leader in maybe in some of my roles. I think having not always seeking approval, but seeking input is more valuable.
And when you talk about empowering your team or, becoming more towards that, like I'm empowering your team, did you feel your team grew along with you, or they were always ready? They were just waiting for you to figure out like, okay, I need, they're ready to be empowered? Or because sometimes people say, oh, I have a team, I'd love to empower them, but I don't think they want that from me. Or how is that?
I think it depends on individuals. Some individuals need more direction, others need to be more empowered. One of the toughest transformation I've had to lead in the last year was reorganizing my team and having to let go of a large part of the team, which was super tough because, first of all, I was not necessarily aligned with the decision, and second, they were a team I had nurtured, hired, developed over the years that I really believe were a super high-performing, super tight-knit group. So that was really challenging. But suddenly when you're a much smaller team, there's no question.
There's no choice.
There's no choice. You have to empower them because
you have to.
There's only so many things one person can do. So you just have to empower them.
How did you steer your team through that? Because you have to let go of people that have, been part of us, tight-knit, as you said, but then also you're left with a group that feels like, okay, what's next? Is next year going to be us? Like how we move onward? How do you lead through such a transformation?
Yeah, that was probably one of my biggest, toughest leadership challenges. I think the first thing is authenticity. The second thing is empathy and clarity. And third thing, I think, would be clarity. Authenticity in the sense I didn't try to sugarcoat the situation and try to make it sound like it was something that it wasn't. And also because they're not kids.
Yeah.
They can handle, they're all grown-ups, and they're all smart people.
Yeah.
they're not stupid.
No.
They can understand. So I was very transparent with them on the situation. And I was very honest with them. I said, it's got nothing to do with performance. We've been a high-performing team. So it's nothing against you. You will feel hurt, but it's nothing personal. I was really encouraging them to, reassure them, I will do whatever I can to help you find a job or to make this as painless as we possibly can.
Yeah.
And I told them, whether you're staying or whether you're going to go, which we didn't know which ones were going to stay or go for some time.
Yeah.
I said, let's just work on the things that make us happy, do good work that we'll feel proud of, that we can sell, that will look good on our CV, that will make the brand shine, so that you have a story to tell, whether you're staying in the team or whether you have to look for a job.
Yeah.
And so you do meaningful work, and the rest will just try to not bother. So that was the first thing. Then, having that empathy, giving that space to the people. I think I had one-on-ones with everyone, understanding their personal situation, their wishes, because not everyone, some people were like, okay, maybe it's an opportunity, I needed to move on.
Right.
Some people were like, no, I have responsibilities, I'm the sole breadwinner, I need to keep my job. So really understanding individual situations to be able to do the best. And then being very, very clear in the communication, not leaving giving them the information as quickly as I had it, try to not hide or delay anything, because that was important. And then once the smaller team was there, then it's how do we rebuild? How do we motivate and
trust and safety?
So making sure that, first of all, we're fewer, so we're just going to have to cut things. There are things we're going to have to stop, making sure we hear them. It was a 1-year process, all in all, but all of them found a job. Some have been promoted.
Yeah.
I think those who are staying, are doing work that they are finding exciting to do, and that will grow them. So hopefully.
These are tough things. There is no playbook. Even though people think there is a playbook, there is no playbook.
No, there is definitely no playbook. But I think when there is no playbook, for me, was my values were what drove me and allowed me to manage it in this way. I was like, okay, the end is, how would you like to be treated? And I try to do that that's the best you can do.
Yeah, and especially what you're saying about clarity, because I think there's also this saying, clarity is respect. And clarity also means this transparency. It links to reliability, right? Which is such an important part of building trust. Like, okay, I can actually rely on Sev for telling me that whenever she has more news, that she will tell me. And then in a strange way, in the midst of this chaos, that actually strengthens a bit of the trust, even though it's not pretty. And what you're saying, like, these are grown-ups. Yeah. Oh man, I'm glad I don't have to lead through this, because especially you have built this whole team. Yeah. What do you see your leadership, going next, being stretched next? What are things you want to further develop or learn? Like, when you look forward, what do you see for yourself?
Well, I think I want to be able to bring this kind of leadership to new organizations. I'm not looking forward to restructuring another team. Developing, especially in female young leaders, especially in this part of the world, or some part of the world where I have team where, the old style of leadership, which is, I know, I'm loud, I'm infallible, is kind of the model.
Yeah.
I really want to show that and encourage and groom future leaders to a different type of leadership, because this doesn't have to be the way. There must be a more empathetic, a kinder type of leadership. Not to say that it's still absolutely about performance, still about delivering results, but I think in everything that we do, there's the what and there's the how. The what may not change, but how you decide to lead can be very, very different. And I think grooming a new generation of leaders, that there are different styles of leadership, and that there is a more empathetic, empowering type of leadership out there. I think that's something that I'm quite keen to do.
100%. And I love that you are role modeling exactly that those are not two ends of the spectrum. You can be high performing and high care, authentic, wonderful leaders. Thank you so much, Sev. This is amazing to have you, and I've learned so much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.